the definitions were very different that people were using, and are still to some degree. Not everybody's still using the same definitions, even though the NICE has initiated a project last year to kind of refine and redo these definitions, but they haven't got to the people in terms of the knowledge transfer, which is, I know that NICE has been working on that tremendously, but it's very difficult to get knowledge transferred to every single project in every province. So
sure.
That's one of our big challenges. We need to have some kind of common terms and definitions that we can use. I think we're closer now, much closer than we ever were. I think we researchers need to get more focused on intervention. I think everybody's getting tired of the definition thing, because even if there are slight differences, we're pretty much on the same wavelength at this point. And I think if we tell any of the practitioners there will be, one more piece of research on definitions, I think people will kind of sigh with disgust. Looking at clients themselves, like basic client research, is to me, to some degree, the much more important than asking the practitioners what they think, because I think there are differences between what we perceive a lot of the time and what's the reality. So I would have more client-focused research, which is difficult and it's time-consuming and it's not always easy, and it has a lot of ethical issues, but I think it's important. One of the problems is our systemic problems. I've worked a lot of my years in the community, and there are certain issues there which come to the fore in abuse and neglect. When you look at the stressed caregivers and the depressed caregivers, why are we not picking up these depressed caregivers who if we basically really focused on treating people who are depressed, who are caregivers, or helping them to deal with their situations better by kind of organizing their services better, through perhaps better case management, as les gens would say, I think that would really prevent a lot of elder abuse issues. And why are we not attacking the causes of elder abuse? Because basically in our interventions, we're not doing enough prevention. And I think this is a social policy issue. If we say that substance abuse is a major factor, and I know it is, particularly in our area here, it's still a major factor. If you look at some of our cases, a lot of them are involved in substance abuse issues or gambling issues, etc. Why are we not addressing more of those issues if we want to try to prevent elder abuse? And why are we not focusing on giving services to the perpetrators? We are not doing that. We're basically concentrating a lot on the victims, and I don't say we should not focus on the victims. I'm saying we should be focusing on both. What the people will tell you is we don't have time. What their focus now is giving services like a little business. So we have to, a person needs X amount of services, we have 2 baths a week to give, we have 3 shoppings to give, etc. And it's not that people want to do their work that way, but they have no choice within the model, because we have so many people who come in and we don't have enough resources. So they're not able to keep people at home with the adequate resources, and they're not able definitely to do counseling. And the biggest problem in elder abuse is that it takes a lot of time to help the people move out of their problems. Yeah, so that's the community issues. There's a whole other set of issues in the institutional milieu. I also work now. I've started to focus a lot on the residences and on the long-term care milieu and the institutions, and I find that a lot of systemic issues need to be addressed that are not being addressed. Everybody's probably very aware of them, but nobody does anything about them. There are a lot of people, a large amount of people with severe dementias and severe mental health problems living in the long-term care hospitals and even nursing homes. And the staff are not trained well enough to really understand how to deal with the difficult behavior that comes from some of these people who do have these. And this problem behaviors, which was on the top of our list basically from my indicators, it came out of my own research years ago, it's still there. It's a major factor in terms of what is an indicator of abuse. And I found the reason that this thing exists is because the people get afraid, the staff are not trained well, they're afraid sometimes of certain of the clients, and they're having behavior problems, so they use very restrictive, abusive measures to control them. Whether it's through medication, whether it's through restraints, whether it's through giving them a push. I was just sitting visiting a client with my students, they didn't know who I was, in one of the residences the other day, and this person came in, and she was actually a PAB, and she gave me a big push out of the way. I couldn't believe it. And then she never looked at the client, never told the client basically, hello Mrs. X, how are you today? I would like to do your blood pressure, is that okay? Not a single word, didn't even look at her, proceeded to pull out her machines. It wasn't working properly, so she pushed it to somewhere else to make it, I couldn't believe it. And this is supposedly one of our best places in Montreal. And I made a complaint to the manager, since I was there and I witnessed it, and he said to me, well, that person's really going through a very hard time right now. I said, that's not an excuse. Doesn't take excuse abusive behavior. But this is how it gets dealt with, so I had to push it in order to make sure that something got done. I don't think elder abuse policies, I've been also implementing elder abuse policies in some of these places. They're supposed to have them, but they don't really know, they never apply them. So nobody actually who works there, or the people who work there 90% of the time, they never even read them or understood how they apply, etc. So all of a sudden they get punished for doing something and they didn't even know it was a bad thing to do. Sometimes they argue with me about, for example, allowing, there were several cases of this in one of the homes I went into, where the sons are allowed to, they insist on sitting and being present and watching when the mother, the older mother, is being showered and having her basic bath, etc. Okay. I don't think that's appropriate. I wouldn't want my son to be there. I mean, it's possible sexual abuse. I mean, I was but they will argue that this is okay and that we agree to this and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of the things are systemic in terms of what goes on that shouldn't be going on, and that people do know about it. It's not that they don't know. I can give you many examples of these kind of things. You see on the wall, we believe in older people having great quality of life. But when you start looking a little carefully about what goes on there, is it a quality of life? Is it a quality of life that caregivers have to manage people with severe dementia 24 hours a day sometimes, and they hardly can get any resources? A friend of mine who is actually working in the caregiving milieu, her own mother was very, very sick a while ago. Well, she's still sick, and she was needing all kinds of services. She was having to take loans out of banks in order to give her the services that she needs. Well, imagine somebody who's actually working in the home care sector and in the program for caregivers. If they're not getting good services, well, who is?